But I do believe that Louisville has everything it needs so that everybody can thrive.
How can we grow closer as a city? By listening, learning more about each other, and discussing the discrimination faced by many of our residents. Coming up on this episode of the 502 Report, leaning into tough discussions and leaning into Louisville. Welcome to the 502 Report. This year, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Louisville's Fairness Ordinance, legislation designed to prevent employment and housing discrimination based on sexual orientation and identity.
Louisville's 1999 Fairness Ordinance was really one of those defining moments in the movement and started that firestorm locally, statewide.
Folks could get fired at will just because somebody thought you might be gay. People could be denied access to a hotel, to a restaurant. People could and did lose their rental housing.
You couldn't help but be changed and transformed by this network of activists and legends and people.
It was a tremendously divisive battle in this community. Even the supporters said there's no way you're ever going to pass anti-discrimination protecting LGBT people.
I think it gave us the ability to really delve into the investigative process and to really combat discrimination in our community.
We passed it that night. I was happy. I went back to my office. Steve Magre, who was president of the Board of Aldermen at the time, he said, "I don't know if this means anything to you, but I signed tonight's ordinance with a purple pen in honor of you, and I've got it here if you want it." I said, "Well, of course I want the pen, because purple is purple." Steve Magre, president of the Board of Aldermen, handed me that purple pen, and I still have it to this day.
So the tremendous victory in 1999 was a culmination of 15 years of work from the time we first approached city government and said that we wanted protections based on originally sexual orientation and eventually both sexual orientation and gender identity, because there wasn't a shred of protection for LGBTQ people.
The intersectional framework from which the Fairness Campaign built its movement to pass the Fairness Ordinance in 1999 was built on the bedrock of all injustices being seen as equal. Racial justice and immigrants' rights, poverty issues are all inherently interconnected to the struggle for LGBTQ liberation. And so that was what the co-founders like Carla Wallace and Jeff Rogers and Pam McMichael and so many others instilled in the organization itself that still moved it throughout all of its work.
That year, in 1998, George Unsold, Tina Ward Pugh, and Bill Allison were elected to the Board of Aldermen. And to be honest with you, I think that, and we won by such margins that the other Board of Aldermen members saw that we really had a mandate.
The community has to choose sides. Everybody in the city has to choose sides. Are you for fairness and justice for all people, or are you standing in the way with your silence or your opposition? And that push to get the community to change is the only thing that finally got the leaders to change.
And for any 21st century city to succeed, it must value all people, be a welcoming city, and certainly embrace diversity.
So I think that it also encouraged or allowed mayors since then to be able to be supportive without even thinking about it.
You know, you look a decade later, just about when Mayor Fisher is first getting ready to take office, is running for office, he made fairness, inclusion, diversity one of the key center stones of his campaign. And he immediately worked to start delivering on that promise, passing domestic partner benefits for city workers before marriage was legalized federally or in the state, making certain that his administration and he worked in an intentional way with the Fairness Campaign and our allies to get the Human Rights Campaign's Municipal Equality Index rating up from in the mid-60s to a perfect 100%.
When the ordinance was passed 20 years ago, the Human Relations Commission was given the charge to lead investigations and to basically put forth initiatives and efforts at combating discrimination and bias in the community. We've trained over 4,000 Metro employees in implicit bias so that they take off that bias when they engage with the public or when they engage with each other. And now with this Lean Into Louisville initiative taking forward, not only is Metro government looking at itself through this equitable lens, we're encouraging the community to have those tough talks to basically break down barriers. So we want to encourage people to take off your bias. You may have grown up with them, or you may not even know that you had them. And if you get rid of that bias, you treat people on a more human level.
That type of leadership and progress is the type of thing that says to the broader community all across the nation that this is a place where you can bring your families, where you can bring your loved ones, your partners, and feel safe, feel included, feel like the city is actually working to make it a place for fairness for everyone.
Together we can do this. Together we create a great connected community.
There's been tremendous work with communities, cities around the state deciding that they are going to be fairness cities. But we're fighting for a statewide law so that everyone is protected in Kentucky.
3 out of 4 Kentuckians live in a place, no fairness protections at all. We can't keep up with the movements now. I mean, Bowling Green, Elizabethtown, Somerset, Henderson, and Louisville got that 20 years ago. One of the first cities in the South, the first city in the Commonwealth of Kentucky to do so, still leading the way 2 decades later.
The heart and soul of Louisville, Kentucky is justice and is social justice. You cannot get around it, and a lot of people try to, but you cannot get around it.
It's about being human, it's about community, and it's about just moving forward.
One thing that's exciting to me, I live in the Clifton neighborhood, and when my partner and I walk down Frankfort Avenue, sometimes we will see same-gender young people holding hands. And we always feel this tremendous emotion of gratitude for all the people that have made that possible, because it really is a different community.
There were so many things that I never believed that I could do in and with my life based on my being gay. To see where we are now and where we can start looking forward and leaning into a Louisville that is even more inclusive.
And I think that we can celebrate the gains even as we continue to commit and recommit ourselves to the deeper levels of transformation that have to happen.
And now, a new citywide initiative aims to denounce all forms of discrimination and encourage peace and understanding in our community.
I am a liberal Democrat gay woman.
I'm a Cuban guy.
A Caucasian male.
I'm an American mutt.
I am an African American woman.
You could have multiple cultures that influence who you are as a person.
People are making a big deal out of differences in the way people look, or their skin color, or the way they identify. We don't even realize how all mixed up each of us is, and together can celebrate that.
How do we create a more empathetic and equitable city through educating ourselves around the challenges that different populations face that we ourselves may not understand or appreciate?
I don't feel real comfortable going to some parts of Louisville with my partner.
I hear about his stories about my friends. They got discriminated, because sometimes they don't speak English.
I have been called really nasty words, but that didn't change who I am. I'm still a human being.
I don't want to take anything away from you, and we don't want anything from you. Just accept who we are.
A lot of times pluralism or difference or multiculturalism is seen as a threat. And some of that's reasonable and rational, and sometimes it's not. But it brings up those fears, and so we have to create spaces for people to name that, for them to be heard, then for us to also say, that's not okay in my community. We've got to change. We'll take a moment to do our meditation, sit, and become present. Who wants to start us?
We have to call attention to how prejudice is manifested in different ways.
As we try to build a more egalitarian society, and I think what those white men are feeling is simply just the stripping away of privileges that they didn't realize they'd had.
These are exactly the kind of conversations that we're wanting all of Louisville to have. Lean Into Louisville is like psychoanalysis for the city. the complexities of how we got here are great. Collectively, if we come together across sectors, across communities, and have conversations about this, we do have the capacity. I do believe that Louisville has everything it needs so that everybody can thrive.
That's where you grow the most, is when you're uncomfortable. So in anything, you have to be willing to be criticized. I don't wish you could force anyone to do anything, but I wish you could open up their eyes just a little bit to see being open-minded is a lot more than just open to your point of views.
Understanding each other's culture, I think that would help. Because I think that's the problem. People don't understand each other.
How do we hear one another? How do we listen? How do we feel? And then how do we take collective action? So how do we imagine all the amazing gifts and benefits that these different populations bring to our communities?
We all the same. We're human beings. That's all what matters. And we're in the same house. I mean, the herd.
Honor our diversity and celebrate it. Reach out to people who are different and include them, and go to places where other people who are not like you, and talk and experience life from somebody else's perspective.
Go to leanintolouisville.org for a list of upcoming events. From concerts and book readings to films and lectures, Louisville's libraries will host many of the Lean Into Louisville events.
It's really quite surprising. I see 2 or 3 people I know, but it's a very different crowd.
Our mission is to impart and to engage people with a broader understanding.
This is the beginning of a very exciting lecture series. This is the first of 6 weeks of social justice movements, past and present.
And a big piece of that is the struggle for housing justice, so that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight.
The problems have persisted for much longer than people in the 1960s, 70s, even 80s could have imagined that they would persist.
Different countries of origin are being discriminated against. Different religions are being discriminated against. That is not the United States of America. The strength of our country, the strength of our city is our diversity.
So much effort and work has gone into planning this.
We have to do everything we can as a city to lean into discrimination, to really teach people the history of why there is discrimination and why there is inequity. It goes all the way back with racial discrimination to the days of slavery.
A lot of what we do on a regular basis, year in and year out, is stuff that is just completely natural and compatible with Lean Into Louisville's values.
Through Lean Into Louisville, we will address the many questions that I get from people about, why don't we understand these legacies of discrimination? How can we all be better together? And that's why we said, let's create something so people can become knowledgeable, so we can expand our consciousness as a city.
We want to foster opportunities for the community to come together and have conversations. So what we're going to be looking for ways to do is to get diverse groups of people together, collections of individuals that wouldn't ordinarily happen.
Buchanan v. Worley was big news at the time it happened.
I'm really pleased that people want to talk about it. We need to talk about it. We can't bury our heads in the sand. And more people are taking action, but to take concerted action, very important.
Our true strength is when we're in this together. We are interdependent, we are interconnected. The more we embrace that, the sooner we realize that, the stronger our city's going to be.
Artists will now have a chance to compete for grants to have their work displayed in public places, like Brianna Harlan, possibly offering a platform to voices that otherwise wouldn't be heard.
I think art is how I started connecting with people in the first place. There are so many heavy issues, and I think oftentimes we don't get a chance to comfortably dive into them and make connections with ourselves or with other people. So I start using art as a way to do that. People just really interest me. I find people fascinating. I made these because I felt a need. I hang out with a really diverse, set of people. Especially since I do community work, I'm always in and out of different communities. And the fact that so many people's identities were being used just as political ammunition, basically, an agenda, was really upsetting me. So I took some of those identities, I asked them what photos they wanted to represent themselves, and tried my best to support people in reclaiming their own narratives. When I actually got the email that they wanted them in Metro Hall, I was like, are you sure? Have you read them? The fact that these truths can be here in this space, I'm shocked, honestly, and it means a lot. I don't know how it happened, but I think it needed to, and I'm really glad that it did.
So I was just thinking about that. We have for the past few years been doing art exhibits in Metro Hall. Artists have a unique ability to take complex ideas and present them in such a way that make us think twice. Art in public places is important in terms of describing our community's identity, who we are now, who we used to be, who we want to be in the future. And artists have a unique ability to translate that for us. It brings art out of a private space into a public space.
I like that it breaks the space of a museum or a gallery, because a lot of people still see art as an elitist or extra special cultural experience. That's not what I think art is for. I think public art has a special place as far as the role that art can take, interrupting spaces that people live in all the time to get them to address issues that surround them in igniting change.
Something that we've wanted to do in our public art initiative for a long time is to open up a grant opportunity for public art. We are working with Mayor Fisher's initiative, Lean Into Louisville. Anyone can be eligible for the grant. You have to work with a nonprofit organization, and you have to have an artist or group of artists involved. We're looking for great ideas. And specifically, we're looking for great ideas about the untold stories in our community. This is the time to address the questions, to talk about difficult subjects in public space.
I've gotten nothing but support. I've gotten a few, like, the divided states of Americans, like, before they read them, like, what are you trying to say here? What you read is exactly what the people involved sent me. And I think it's powerful enough that it, like, snags something in people and then they keep reading. That's another thing that's powerful about art, is that it's not judging you. It's safe. You can read it and take your time and have your responses without another person looking at you. It's just the art looking at you. Using creativity to confront and problem solve about things that are happening, whether it's a new tool or a social issue, I think is pretty dope.
If you're interested in learning more about the grant opportunities, go to louisvilleky.gov and search public art. Supporting minority, female, and disability-owned businesses not only helps create equity in the community, but strengthens our local economy as well.
So are y'all meeting some good potential candidates?
Today is the Diverse Business Fair.
We have outreach and advocacy.
As people grow their businesses and take that sort of first step to go out on their own to be an entrepreneur, we want to provide them the tools and the network necessary to be successful in that endeavor.
We're looking for anyone who might be interested in doing business with Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness.
We would ask that our local commercial organizations and our larger employers here in Louisville Metro give a strong look and put an equitable lens on everything that they're doing to give consideration to minority, female, disability-owned businesses, because if we grow their business, then our economy grows. That benefits everybody.
Want to ensure that they have equal access to see what we're looking for and get their cards to the right people.
Look at the whole pie and really just give everyone an opportunity to do business with you.
We made that connection. That's something we want to do in 2020.
In our community, it's still necessary to lift up groups like women and the more experienced citizens.
Life begins at 50. That's the way I feel. We don't want people to feel like they're all alone. That's why we try to find things to do to get them out.
They do really fun things, movies, bourbon tours, painting classes.
And let them know we're all in this together. We can make it as broad as we want to. March is Women Month. Yay!
Trying to pull together leading ladies in Louisville.
That's a good one. You know, what is success?
To be able to bring in the community and let them learn, let them get advice, let them see the good things, the bad things, the successes, the mistakes of very successful women here in our own city.
I wish I had had this when I got out of college. I myself was in a dominated male field, which is IT. And I came up against a lot as far as sexism and racism. All I needed was just that little push to say, this is the way you should do this, or this is what you should do, or do not do this.
Does this tie into Lean Into Louisville?
Yeah,
In order to heal, we need to talk about it. Instead of just behind the door saying things, bring it out. Maybe your hate can turn into love if you talk about it.
Inside, we're all the same. We have the same structures inside. We breathe the same air. We have, the same bones. How do we really just keep building on our similarities? Start breaking down all the barriers that society has really put up around us.
Everybody wants to be successful in life, and that's the key, success.
What I hope people take away from that event is just being able to say, hey, she did it. I can do this. They overcame this. why can't I? You know, so just really having that inspiration there is what I hope people take away from it.
Leading Ladies in Louisville will take place March 20th from 6 to 8 p.m. Contact AARP at 1-866-295-7275 for more information. Every year, Mayor Fisher gives out an award to someone in the community who devotes their lives to activism and justice, the way Martin Luther King Jr. did. This year's recipient is 39-year JCPS employee Diane Porter.
Some people think I'm a quiet storm. Some people think I'm a silent enforcer. I care about education and equity for the children in our community and all that we can do to make it the best.
If you would please raise your right hands.
I'm honored to be the first African American female to lead the board. My passion is obviously education. It's more than a career. It's a lifelong piece that I do. And I came to the table with how can I do the work? Let's get started.
We are elected to represent one district in Jefferson County, but our vision and goal is to see all students succeed.
I'm a person that cares about people, how we treat people, how we talk to people, and the whole equity piece for folks. It's more than a career. It's just what I do.
When you think about the greatest equity tool, what is it? Education.
Education brings equity because you are building within yourself. Not only are you learning to do the academic components, but you're gaining self-confidence with yourself and your ability to do well.
And when you think about Diane Porter, a lifelong champion for education, whether she's the board chair or in the schoolroom, and this woman is everywhere.
How are you?
I'm well.
Nice to see you.
Whether it's a huge public meeting where she is speaking forcefully and passionately for all kids to achieve an education, but especially those kids that are marginalized for whatever reason. Or I see her putting her hand around a young lady at Central High School and encouraging her to do more in a quiet moment. So no matter where it is, if it's in a single moment or if it's in a huge moment, Diane Porter has always been there.
So in the ongoing work to make that dream real here in our city and throughout our country, it's a great joy for me to take a moment to honor someone whose exceptional character, spirit, and determination not only exemplify the legacy of Dr. King, but inspire those around here in our city to do the same.
And I could think of nobody that Dr. Martin Luther King would be more proud of to say, you go girl, you are a great champion for education, and that is the way we move forward together as a society.
Dr. King always spoke of his 4 children, that they would be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. So that's extremely important to us, and it's important in life because sometimes people have a preconceived notion of who you are, what you are, and what you can do.
We hope you'll get involved with Lean Into Louisville and take a look at some of the upcoming events at leanintolouisville.org. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the 502 Report. Until next time, take care.